Why do some things cause us to go into shock where other things we may just be surprised? So what is shock? What impact does that have on us?
Well, shock is of course an upheaval of the nervous system and of the mental processes. It's something that we didn't expect to happen. And it's something of a magnitude, and that magnitude will be different to different people. It can be a huge shock to some people, and a little shock can be what other people see as a huge shock. But we go into shock because it comes out of the blue. We've had no warning that it's going to happen, and when it does happen, we feel out of control. You think, oh my gosh, I've got no control here. This has happened, what am I going to do? We feel that we have an inability to be in charge. We feel uncomfortable. We feel that we can't cope. How am I going to cope? This is so big, even though it might be very small in the scheme of things. But to that person at that point in time, at that moment in time, I can't cope with this. I don't have the facility, the faculty to cope with this. I don't have the faculties to understand this. I'm not in control of this. I'm not in charge of this. I feel completely adrift, and I feel that this is doomsday, all happened at once. That is shock. If we're dealing with shock as a therapist, what we want to do straight away is to simply cause the person to accept this is reality. This has happened. Now what are we going to do about it? And that's a success to dealing with shock. What are we going to do? What are the steps that we're going to do to cope with this and to deal with this? And what's the most important thing of all is, we're living in a world today. We have got this mental health explosion. We've got this depression explosion. We've got this autism explosion. And, there's various reasons why there's autism. But all of those conditions are linked to people believing, I can't cope. I can't do this. This is too hard. And people making a decision that they don't want to take accountability. The one thing that we have to realize is that each and every single person, every entity who comes to life and comes into the current life that they're living, are pre-programmed with the ability to cope with every condition, every situation that happens in their life. In addition to that, they have their guide sitting right beside them to speak to call on instantly and say, what do I do? And to give them an understanding of why the situation has happened, what it is they have to learn from it. But we, of course, don't teach our children that. For someone like myself, who has that understanding, shock lasts for a few hours. We're human beings too. So you get a shock, you feel a shock, and you think, oh wow, that's a bit of a shock. But all of that understanding kicks in very, very quickly. The first thing I would say to myself is, okay, why has this happened? What am I meant to learn from this? What's the reason for it? And very quickly I feel I can deal with it. I'm in charge. I can cope with this. Because I have the understanding of what it's all about. The difficulty for people dealing with shock is when they don't have any of that understanding at all. They then take themselves to self-pity. Why is this happening for me? This is not fair. This is not equal to everyone else. Why am I suffering this? Then we have shock, then we have anger, then we have depression, then we have loss and grief. Then we have the whole kit and caboodle, because we're simply not understanding spirituality, what life is about. You're going to get plenty of shocks in life. You just need to say, this is reality. What do I need to learn? And what's the next steps to coping with it?
It's interesting in a reading, people will often get a shock because you tell them the truth, an unfiltered truth. So in our world, a truth is a truth, and it's just said as a truth. They know it, but they've lived a life making sure they don't hear it. And so it sets up a shock, and they're then faced with the decision, will I face that, or will I just blame the messenger? And that then will affect the outcome for them. So shocks are big, and that's quite a relatively small shock, but it's a shock.
Is it a shock isn't necessarily an emotion then?
Oh, it will cause an emotion.
It causes an emotion, but it's not an emotion. It's what it's doing to the nervous system.
It's the nervous system going into a shock. A shock. You know, it's very interesting. I recently had a conversation with someone that I became aware that one of our children, and our children are all involved in spirituality, they're mediums, they're teaching mediums, etc., etc. But one of our children, a person had a view of one of our children who was saying they were too honest, and therefore that caused people to dislike them. That is an amazing statement for someone like me to hear, that a person can be too honest and that causes people to dislike them. Of course, in reality, it does happen where someone hears the truth and says, you're a nasty person, you're a mean person, you're a horrible person because you just told me this piece of information that I don't want to believe, that I don't want to hear, even though it is the truth. It's a sad world.
Which says in a reading, I give someone a truth as I'm told to pass it on, and it's good news, there's no shock. The shock's only when it's something that they don't want exposed. They know it, but the game of life has been to hide it. So when someone says someone else is too honest outside of a reading, they're cross because their secret's exposed.
So is that where the line between, let's say, shock and surprise? Because the surprise, you're not expecting it. So, but the shock is negative and impacting the nervous system, but you could be in a reading and you'll be like, oh, that's a surprise.
A surprise is lesser.
Yes.
A surprise is much smaller.
But could also be positive.
Yeah, and a surprise can often be something good, something that is pleasant. Shock, of course, can be something that's pleasant too, but it's rare. It's rare. You can give somebody something that's a gift and that's a wonderful thing, and you will hear people say, I was so shocked when that happened. Really, in reality, that's not a shock. Really, the correct word there is, I was so surprised. Because the shock means the nervous system has gone into turmoil and it has to be settled down, it has to be brought into alignment. And the mind has to accept this has happened. This is my reality right now. And the mind has to then make the decision to deal with the reality and make the decision, I can cope with this. I can cope with dealing with this, and I will take accountability to deal with this.
For more spiritual knowledge, remember to subscribe. If any of the information Ian and Pearl spoke about piqued your interest, make sure you like and comment on this video below. There's so much knowledge and advice being delivered from Spirit to you via this channel. Healing your physical and emotional pains will guide you towards a more loving and meaningful life. This is the Spiritual Renaissance.